We've got to wait for the stream. You know how this is. We've got to wait for it to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet before we go ahead and get started. And it looks like the tubes are connecting literally as we speak. And Eureka! It's connected. We're alive and well. So let's get started, shall we? Hello, my friends. And welcome back to yet another episode of the January 6th Select Committee hearing edition of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group. We're located in Scottsdale, Arizona, and today it is Amber Heard 2.0, apparently. Now, I didn't watch much of the Hollywood trial, but we have our own show trial that resembles a Hollywood trial. And apparently there's a lot of hearsay going on that resembles a lot of what Amber Heard said in her trial with Johnny Depp. And so on Twitter all afternoon, Amber Heard 2.0 was trending all over the Twitterverse. Everybody was saying that this witness that came in today on the January 6th Select Committee hearings, her name is Cassidy Hutchinson. And apparently, as we go through this, as we unpack this surprise hearing, we're going to hear a lot of hearsay. And so today we're actually going to take a look at the hearsay rule because it is confusing to a lot of people. In fact, even some very renowned constitutional scholar, lawyers, people that have blue check marks on Twitter don't understand how the hearsay rules work. And so we're going to have to do a refresher for all of us because this is just yet another component, another bit of evidence that details exactly why this entire hearing is so shammy, I guess is the best way, why it's such a scam. All right, so we're going to unpack all of that and more. Let me give you a quick outline over from our mind map. And of course, this is available at J6Mindmap.com. This is our podium thief here who almost stole America right out from under us. And recall that, boy, we have covered a lot of hearings. So for context, this was a surprise hearing. Nobody even knew this was going on. My goodness, it kind of caught everybody by surprise. We were all yesterday in abortion mode, wandering around, watching the bodies stack up on the sidewalks from, the women, I guess, dying all over the place. But we were in that mindset. And then suddenly, boom, January 6th hearing comes up. Everybody drop everything. Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson have a new witness. That's going to come out and unveil some new material for us that's going to be very surprising. And so we've already covered a litany here. Mike Pence, the big lie. We had the season premiere some time ago. Last week on the 23rd, we talked about all sorts of the AGs and the pressure that was being placed upon everybody. And so today, we really only had one main witness, and her name here is Cassidy Hutchinson. Now, as is usual, they played, a bunch of video clips. This whole thing's like a book report, like almost like a high school pep rally where they're just one after another presenting their topic. It's like, Liz Cheney, you had chapter 1 of the novel. What did you think of Little Henry, the protagonist? And she's like, well, here's what I think. And then around and around we go. But Cassidy Hutchinson is here. We've got a lot to unpack. Now, this is going to be pretty easy because this testimony was so bad, at least from what I've gathered. I think it's going to be pretty easy. Like I said, I have not really listened to much of this. Basically, how this works is I pull all these clips, I throw them in the mind map, I put them in a rough outline, and then we kind of piece them together. But I was able to just sort of, based on some of the headlines, already take a look at what this narrative is all about. The story goes from Miss Cassidy. Donald Trump did something on the January 6th to try to seize the steering wheel out and away from the Secret Service agent, the person who actually drives the beast. So we're going to unpack that narrative, right? Is Donald Trump really seizing control of the presidential motorcade in order to, conduct his insurrection? Like, is he going to go to the mountaintop where the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers are congregating and say, I'm here, boys, let's take over America now? Like, what? This is ridiculous. Anyways, so we haven't even listened to the testimony and it sounds ridiculous, but she's going to make that claim and we'll unpack that. Now, something that this committee has been doing is, basically the entire committee is one big conversation out of context. And they did that today, again, with Donald Trump and his speech. And so I actually pulled up both versions of this, the version of Trump's speech that the committee played and the full version of Trump's speech where he says things like, go down there and march peacefully and patriotically, right? All of this is out of context. It's a complete one-sided show. They've done this before previously by taking and not reading sort of the second half of Donald Trump's tweet. Remember when he said, "Go home in peace"? They didn't read that. They put it on the screen, but they didn't read that. So we'll take a look at that. Apparently, Donald Trump was also screaming at his Secret Service agents to take the mags away, take their gun, their sort of their ammunition essentially away, their magazines that go into their firearms, right? Take the magazines away, but give them the guns. And I don't know about you here, but we've watched a lot of the January 6th Select Committee garbage footage. And, none of it, I didn't see anywhere where people were brandishing, firearms without magazines in them. So it's like, what are they talking? Anyway, we'll get to that. Rudy Giuliani comes up on here, and then Pat Cippilone as well. They're talking here. Now, this woman, I sort of got ahead of myself, is an aide to Mark Meadows, who's a former Mark Meadows, of course, was the former White House chief of staff to Donald Trump. This was an aide to Mark Meadows. Okay, so it's not Mark Meadows. It's not anybody in Trump's inner circle. It's an aide to somebody who is in Trump's inner circle. And so that's who we're going to be talking about today. Donald Trump, of course, responds to this. I've got several clips over from Truth Social. We are going to recap some of the rules on hearsay. What is hearsay? Because people are confused about this. And then ask ourselves, with a little help from Lindsey Graham of all people, was this really an emergency? Did they really need to just drop this on America in the middle of the week, when we're all sort of gearing up to burn down the country over abortion in the Supreme Court? We're busy. We've got other things to talk about. Why do they have to shove this in here? But they did. And so we've got a lot to attend to. And if you want to be a part of the show, my friends, the place to do that is by joining one of our communities here. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com is the place to be. Along with YouTube, our membership there, you can click that join button right next to the subscribe button. And of course, we have our members mastermind coming up this Thursday. It's at 12:30 p.m. If you haven't read the book yet, Think and Grow Rich, a beautiful old book from Napoleon Hill. Chapter 10 of that book talks about the mastermind process. And we're going to do a little debut of that here at our community. And so if you're a member on either of these locals or on YouTube, you are going to get a link to a private stream on Thursday. So be available for that if you want to join up, watchingthewatchers.locals, or you can click that button right next to the YouTube membership. And of course, thank you for always remembering that our law firm has a mission of helping good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases. And if you happen to know anybody in the state of Arizona who needs help in any type of context, anybody who's in trouble with the law, we offer free case evaluations. We have an amazing team of people ready and standing by. Harleen is right there. She's ready to help you. She's outstanding. So, okay. So shout outs to R&R Law Group and our team over there. Your referrals to our team, we get to spend more time here talking about all of this other fun stuff, and I appreciate it. Okay. So without any further ado then, my friends, let's get back into the hearing. So we're going to start off by getting some proper context for exactly what's happening here, because recall, we weren't scheduled for this hearing, right? They told us, they're doing a little bait and switch on us here from this scam committee. They said we were going to have 6 hearings. Okay, like a good little mind mapper I am, I went out and I actually detailed all of these. I put them on the chart. I said, okay, this one's on this date. This one's on this day. We got 6 of these. Let's categorize this. Okay, because I am a lawyer. I happen to be a defense lawyer. And we like to know what the evidence is that's being presented. In a regular criminal case, in a regular court proceeding, we would have witness lists, exhibit lists. We would get to see all of the material, not just what they choose to show us, but all of it. We get to see the entire picture, not just the little sliver, not just the corner that they want to unveil, so that we can make our arguments. Well, this whole thing has not even resembled that in any way, shape, or form. The entire hearing has been basically a scam. I've made this point many times. I still have an open invitation for somebody to explain to me how this is wrong. But I've been saying for a long time now that this is an illegal committee. Here's my justification for that. The fake select committee was created by the passage of H.R. 503, the House resolution, which is what gives them the legal power to exist. They put that in place back on, it was introduced on 6/28/2021. That's the thing that gives them the power. If you look at this document, it tells us here in the text that the composition here, right under section 2, The Speaker shall appoint 13 members to the Select Committee, 5 of whom shall be appointed after consultation with the Minority Leader. That's the Republicans. There are not 13 members on this committee. There are not 5 Republicans on this committee. In fact, there are only 2 Republicans out of a total of 9, right? And they're arguably not even Republicans who are not, they're definitely not going to be there next year. So all of this, okay, is just a big fake committee as far as I can tell. And I have not seen a good argument as to why that's not true. With that as our foundation now, let's take a look and understand exactly what took place today. And what I want to do is first start with Liz Cheney, and then we're going to take 2 examples of all of the testimony today. And I'm going to show you how these 2 little bits are totally erroneous, right? How you can show that they're lacking in credibility and they're essentially illegitimate. She's making claims. She makes a claim in a regular court of law. The defense gets up, or the oppositional party gets up, and they get to cross-examine her, right? In a regular proceeding that was not a show trial. They would come up and they would say, well, isn't it true? And isn't it true? And isn't it true? So on and so forth. And you're just a big liar, aren't you? Nobody gets to do that here. But practically, in a court of law, when that happens, what does that do to that witness's entire line of testimony, right? Everything else. You throw it in the garbage because that person's a liar. If you can shatter their credibility on one facade, on one point, okay, most of the time it's going to crumble. It's a house of cards. One domino knocks into the others and the whole thing comes crumbling down. If you can really, sort of skewer somebody with a lie. And that's why you see in these cross-examinations, people get so dang defensive. Now, I got to be honest, I did not watch but maybe 5 minutes of the Hollywood trial that just took place and still is ongoing apparently. But, a lot of the same criticisms that were coming out of that trial, that it was all hearsay and there were objections and all of that. Okay. All of that is, there's 2 parts that are taking place in a regular trial, like sort of 2 components of witness testimony. One are the facts. Like, we all care about the facts. What did somebody say? They said that the light was green. Okay. That's a factual statement. The light was green. But now we also have to judge that person's credibility, right? And that's sort of the character, and that's kind of a separate issue. Now there's a lot of overlap there. Because if they are credible about, you find them credible, then you find them truthful about whether the light was green or not. But separate and apart, right? Credibility sort of runs like a fabric, like a thread throughout a quilt. And these other factual details are just like little blips. And so there's an interesting thing that happens, when you sort of shatter somebody's credibility, then those independent facts start to all sort of lose their threshold, lose their footing. So we can take Cassidy's entire line of testimony today, take a couple examples, show why they are so egregiously dishonest and wrong, and that should basically demolish the rest of her testimony, right? That would be the strategy in an actual court of law. Of course, we're not in that, so we'll do what we can. Now here, let's dive into Liz Cheney. Now, my first question on this whole saga was all about whether this was really an emergency, because they dropped this on us like a bag of potatoes, and we were unhappy about it because we had other stuff to attend to today. Ghislaine Maxwell, for example, got sentenced 20 years. I recorded, I think, about a 40-minute video before we hopped on here, and I made that. That's going to be coming out later tonight. But we have that going on. We've got the abortion saga going on. We've got Joe Biden's over at the G7. A lot of issues here. Next at 2020 on Rumble shares a post from the Babylon Bee. He says Ghislaine Maxwell is going to be killed early for good behavior. Right? Those are the types of stories that we want to cover. So, it's good news for her. But the point is, this was not scheduled. And we didn't know who they were even going to be presenting here. And all of this came out on Twitter and everybody was speculating. Is it Mike Pence? Oh my gosh, who's it going to be? And it turns out that it really wasn't all that big of an emergency. Here's why I say that. First of all, this woman already testified in front of the committee. Okay, here's actually a photograph of her during a deposition. So if they've already asked her a bunch of questions and she's already answered a bunch of questions, why is it suddenly an emergency today? Like, did they do the deposition yesterday? And they're like, oh gosh, we better get this out now. Like, we have to have a hearing now. So I'd love to know, when was this deposition and how long was it? And where's the rest of the testimony, quite frankly? But Lindsey Graham, whom I am not a fan of, he actually had a great point today. And Lindsey Graham is a smart dude. He's, he does this like folksy, golly, old shucks, little shtick routine, whatever. That guy is a wolf, 100%. So be careful with him. Lindsey Graham says apparently Miss Hutchinson testified numerous times for multiple hours about what she knew about the events leading up to January 6th and its aftermath. Isn't that nice? And in her previous testimony, he asks, did she mention the dramatic events that she described here today? Or was all this new? Because, it's pretty dramatic. Donald Trump seized the wheel of the beast, the motorcade, the presidential motorcade. And like now you're just going to tell us about this here today in an emergency proceeding? Well, we're not so sure about that. And as we dig into this, a lot of people are saying, this lady, her credibility is already shot because she's an individual who wanted to go work as part of the post-Donald Trump presidency in the first place. Okay, so all this is a case of sour grapes. She got denied a job or a position down there at Mar-a-Lago. Now she's a little upset about that. So she wants to go take it out on old Trumpy poo. Here you can see from Bloomberg, we've got this article. They tell us, and this article came out back on January 14th, 2021, right? So Trump is planning to exit the White House. What is it, the 20th? A few days later. So Bloomberg posted this, said Trump plans to live at Mar-a-Lago and employ some current aides. Wonder where they got this info from. It says Trump plans to fly to Mar-a-Lago in Florida the morning of Joe Biden's inauguration, where several current White House staff are expected to work for him. Trump intends to live at the Palm Beach resort, people said. Although some residents and neighbors are very angry. They don't want the Trumper to infest their neighborhoods. So the White House is considering holding a sending off party for Donald Trump. This week, State Department extended invitations. The Bidens have accepted people coming in and celebrating with him. Do you remember that when the world was happy that Joe Biden was coming into presidency? Remember that? Like flashback to that year, to that era. Yeah, Donald Trump's leaving. It's going to get better. Oh, what a disaster. All right. So Kushner talking about his plans and so on. But here's the juicy bit, right? This is what we're getting at here. Trump aides who may work for him after the White House include Nick Luna, the director of Oval Office Operation and Donald Trump's body man. We might also see Molly Michael, a deputy assistant to Donald Trump. And we've got Cassidy Hutchinson. An aide to Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, the people said. Luna's wife, Cassidy Luna, a deputy assistant to the president, may also work for Kushner. So apparently she was going to go down there. Well, and hey, by the way, folks, at this moment in time, January 6th had already happened. Okay. So she apparently not somebody who was too upset about a post-Trump presidency position was even going to go down there and work at Mar-a-Lago until she wasn't. So you can see, right, this is what a defense attorney would do to impugn her credibility. And I don't even think it's that hard to do. Now, how are we want to doing this? Okay, so let's do it this way. Let's hit the hearsay rule first, because this is confusing. And this is sort of a foundational issue that we just got to knock out of the way. So Eli Mistel, now he is on, now I forgot, I'm pretty sure he is a lawyer. Eli Mistel, let's just verify this. He's an attorney, he's a writer, he's a commentator. Here, let's see what Wikipedia tells us about this guy. He is justice correspondent for The Nation. He writes about the courts, criminal justice system, and politics. Oh, look at this. Look at this. So Eli Mistel, we've talked about this guy many times. I forgot. This is a Harvard guy. Oh, yeah, this guy right here. Yeah, there he is. He's a Harvard guy. Oh, good. Perfect. So here, he received a degree in government at Harvard College and his JD from Harvard Law School. Oh, gosh. Okay, so this all makes sense now. This is perfect. Yeah. Yeah, this is why he doesn't understand the hearsay rules, because he went to Harvard. So let's clarify some of this for him here. We'll close this out. And it's a pretty simple rule, actually. You just go over to Federal Rules of Evidence, and what we can see is it just defines hearsay for us. And it says the definition is a statement. All right. So it's right here, A, B, and C. We get the definition of a statement. We get the definition of the declarant. That's the person who made the statement. Okay. So the person who is saying the thing or writing the thing. It's a statement. And it's hearsay. It means that the declarant, a hearsay means that a statement is hearsay if the declarant does not make it while testifying at the current trial or hearing. So it's an out-of-court statement, right? It's not in court. And a party offers in evidence that statement to prove the truth of the matter asserted. All right. So it's an out-of-court statement that somebody is bringing in to prove something. What are we talking about? The truth of the matter. So it's like a meaningful statement made out of court. Now, this does get actually complicated. Okay, for Eli's in his defense, there are exceptions. There's sort of exclusions to hearsay. There are things that are hearsay, but we just say those are not hearsay. So it is confusing beyond that. But I just wanted to point this out to you. Okay, so he posted this on Twitter today. He's kind of getting skewered over it. He says, just in case anybody needs a hearsay explainer. Okay, it's not hearsay. He's talking about Amber Heard 2.0, Cassidy Hutchinson. He says, it's not hearsay, okay? She's testifying to conversations that she participated in. Oh. So that means that so he's getting confused because she has, personal knowledge of it. She was a party to those conversations, but she's also just trying to get the hearsay with somebody else's statements, which is an out-of-court statement. So if Eli's rule was the standard, right, basically you could come in and you could talk about anything that you had a conversation with anybody about. Just say, no, I had a conversation with them and they told me they murdered that guy. Oh, I had a conversation with Jane. She told me that Billy murdered Susie. Okay, so we don't need to bring Jane in here? No, you don't need to question Jane about anything. Jane told me that she saw Bobby murder Billy or whatever, right? The whole story. So the point of hearsay is that you want to cross-examine people. You want to be able to bring them in so that you can say, this prosecutor just asked you about this, but I have a different interpretation of it. Isn't it true that so on and so forth? And that gives you the opportunity to challenge the statement. You can't do that if it's an out-of-court statement, because what Bobby told Susie and Susie reiterates to the court, we can only question Susie about what Susie knows, not about what Bobby told her. It's too far removed. And because we want evidence that is actually credible and legitimate in court, we have rules that say you can't talk about those things. So Eli Mistel is a little bit confused about it. Damon Toel says, I'm going to print out this tweet and try to use it the next time I'm eliciting witness testimony at a trial. I hope Eli will pay my sanction fees. And it's a good one from Damon, because you just say, Judge. Eli went to Harvard, by the way. Did you look at this? His Wikipedia says he went to Harvard. So he's got to be right. So that's right. No, so it's not right. But a lot of people are going to get confused about this. Okay, most of her testimony is going to be just useless garbage, but let's see what Liz has to say. Now, the justification for this emergency is that there was pressure coming down to bear upon the witnesses, essentially. Lindsey Graham, as we already talked about, gave us a good indicator, a good point as to why this was really not an emergency and wanted to know why this evidence didn't come out sooner. We'll get to a lot more of that as we unpack this, but let's listen to Miss Cheney as she tells us a little bit about the undue pressure brought down to bear upon these witnesses.
Our committee commonly asks witnesses connected to Mr. Trump's administration or campaign whether they've been contacted by any of their former colleagues or anyone else who attempted to influence or impact their testimony. Without identifying any of the individuals involved, let me show you a couple of samples.
Can you believe that? Without identifying the people involved?
Influence or impact their testimony. Without identifying any of the individuals involved, let me show you a couple of samples of answers we received to this question. First,
so we can't vet any of this, right? It's not, you can't corroborate any bit of it because it could all be made up. Where's the evidence? I don't know. Liz Cheney, we have to trust her. She just shoves it up on the screen and we just say, okay, I guess that's truth.
Here's how one witness described phone calls from people interested in that witness's testimony. Quote, what they said to me is, as long as I continue to be a team player, they know I'm on the right team. I'm doing the right thing. I'm protecting who I need to protect. you know I'll continue to stay in good graces in Trump world. And they have reminded me a couple of times that Trump does read transcripts, and just keep that in mind as I proceed through my interviews with the committee.
Okay, so, right, these are people that we don't know anything about. Liz Cheney, even the DOJ, and many of the people who are a part of the actual prosecution of the J6ers have said multiple times, we'd like to get all of the evidence. A lot of the J6ers would like to get that evidence as well. Some of it might be exculpatory. In fact, the prosecutors from the DOJ, if you remember, we covered this previously, they are agreeing to a continuance. I think it's in the Proud Boys case or in the Oath Keepers case, one of the two, same essential cases. I mean, same, two different groups, but the same charges on more or less a similar timeline. But they were saying that, yeah, we agree to a continuance. We are okay postponing this out because we know it's running in parallel to the J6 committee. And that is a gigantic problem, right? Because if something exculpatory does come out, it might jeopardize the actual criminal case, the prosecution here. And so they don't have to disclose anything. So I guess we can believe this. I mean, I guess maybe somebody wrote this. I don't know. Or maybe Liz Cheney was writing this, in the bathroom this morning. I have no idea.
Here's another sample in a different context. This is a call received by one of our witnesses. Quote, "A person let me know you have your deposition tomorrow. He wants me to let you know he's thinking about you. He knows you're loyal and you're going to do the right thing when you go in for your deposition."
Okay, so like interference with witnesses, I guess, I think that's what she's implying is happening here, which would be a criminal charge. So are they going to open new investigations into the people who are pressuring people to lie about testimony in front of a lawfully constituted tribunal? I mean, that's the remedy. If this is happening, this sounds like it might be criminal conduct. So why are you not referring it over to the DOJ for criminal prosecution then? Why are you still just making a show trial of this? Like, is the FBI investigating this stuff? I don't know.
I think most Americans know that attempting to influence witnesses to testify untruthfully presents very serious concerns. We will be discussing these issues as a committee, carefully considering our next steps.
I want to speak directly to the handful of witnesses who have been outliers in our investigation.
Everybody's
small number
coming to pressure to
who
bear.
have defied us outright. Those whose memories have failed them again and again on the most important details, and to those who fear Donald Trump and his enablers. Because of this courageous woman and others like her, your attempt to hide the truth from the American people will fail. And to that group of witnesses, if you've heard this testimony today and suddenly you remember things you couldn't previously recall,
And suddenly you remember now.
or there are some details you'd like to clarify, or you discovered some courage you had hidden away somewhere,
Or you're petrified because the strong arm of the federal government is about to, violate your derriere in a way that is unfathomable, that is totally un-American in a way that should be illegal and should be prosecuted, in my opinion. And maybe it will be. I mean, the Republicans are going to take charge at some point in time. And maybe it's under the purview of Donald Trump a second term. We'll see.
our doors remain open. The Select Committee will reconvene in the weeks ahead as we continue to
All right, so enough of Benny Thompson. Now, that was their introductory statement. Okay, they both went hemming and hawing. Everybody's under great pressure. This is such a catastrophe. Nobody's even watching these things anymore. Nobody cares. But here, okay, so anyways, they bring her out. This is Cassidy Hutchinson. We've already spoken quite a bit about her. And we know that she was an aide to Mark Meadows, who is former chief of staff to Donald Trump. And so, kind of a high up position. And so the question is, was she in the room when a lot of this was happening? Was she a central witness, a key figure? We don't know. But we do know that several different bits of testimony really caught the eye of a lot of the public today. Now, I didn't sit and watch the whole thing, but here's sort of what I was able to glean from a lot of the aftermath. And what ends up happening, as you know, is a lot of these things, they're just looking for the sound bites that they can retweet a million times. And then this type of stuff bubbles up to the top. The media latches onto the headlines that they think sound good, And here's what we've got. So the big headline, well, two of them really. One has been around Donald Trump and his speech, and the days leading up to that speech, this woman allegedly was having conversations with Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, and Pat Cippilone about what to do in the moments up to that speech. Okay, so we're going to get a lot of sort of the days leading up into January 6th from her. But the big story that is really sort of catching a lot of eyeballs is this steering wheel saga. Now, the steering wheel saga, well, let's just start here, because I think if we unpack this, we can see I've got a lot on the menu here. But once we unpack this, I think you'll see sort of how the rest of this can get pretty ridiculous. So here is the clip from Miss Hutchinson. It's about 2 minutes. Let's piece through it together.
When I returned to the White House, I walked upstairs towards the Chief of Staff's office, and I noticed Mr. Ornato lingering outside of the office. Once we had made eye contact, he quickly waved me to go into his office, which was just across the hall from mine. When I went in, he shut the door, and I noticed Bobby Engel, who is the head of Mr. Trump's security detail, sitting in a chair, just looking somewhat discombobulated and a little lost. I looked at Tony, and he had said,
Objection, hearsay.
"Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?"
Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast? Okay, so now what are we trying to prove here? What's the truth of the matter asserted? I guess that Trump's a psycho person who is a reckless maniac. Okay, so now we have an out of court statement. This is somebody else that she is talking to who told her, right? It's like multiple layers of hearsay. Did you hear what happened in the Beast? So maybe he was not even there. We don't know. So let's just back that up a little bit, right? Basically, everything that comes out of this is going to be hearsay. Let's just piece it together, though. Well, I'm not going to object every time. I'm not going to pause on this, but that's what it is, all right? And almost all of this is going to be hearsay. And in a regular criminal proceeding, none of this would be admissible. Let's listen.
Just looking somewhat discombobulated and a little lost. I looked at Tony, and he had said, "Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?" I said, "No, Tony, I just got back."
The Beast.
What happened? So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol. And when Bobby had relayed to him, "We're not, we don't have the assets to do it. It's not secure. We're going back to the West Wing." The president had very strong, a very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president. Take me up to the Capitol now."
I'm the effing president. We're going to the Capitol building. Donald Trump is screaming at the driver of the Beast, right? Which is the presidential limo. They call it the Beast because it's like a tank. I mean, it really is. I've got a diagram of this that we'll unpack here. So let's go back to her. I'm the effing president. Take me to the Capitol.
To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel, and when Mr. Ornato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
And was Mr. Engel in the room as Mr. Ornato told you this story?
He was.
Yeah.
Did Mr. Engel correct or disagree with any part of the story from Mr. Ornato?
Mr. Engel did not correct or disagree with any part of the story.
All right. So.
And when Bobby had relayed to him, "We're not, we don't."
Where are they?
What happened? "Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?" I said, "No, Tony, I just got back."
In the Beast, right?
I said, "No, Tony, I just got back."
Did you hear what happened in the Beast? Okay, right? Not outside the Beast.
I looked at Tony, and he had said, "Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?"
In the Beast. Yeah, there it is. In the Beast.
"No, Tony, I just got back." What happened? So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol. And when Bobby had relayed to him, "We're not, we don't have the assets to do it. It's not secure."
So that's all we need to hear, okay? So two things. got into the vehicle, and when they were in the vehicle going into the Capitol, okay, so Donald Trump is inside the vehicle at this moment. Now, a lot of people have been sort of going through this. You know, it's not like a limo car, right? Like the driver of the beast, according to this photograph here, it's not a regular car. The driver compartment dashboard contains communication centers, right? There's like a whole chauffeur is trained here. There's a 180-degree escape evasion turn. 5 layers of glass and polycarbonate can withstand armor. The only window that can open by just 3 inches is the driver's window, right? So the driver's window is open. There's a chassis here. Tires are Kevlar. Pump action brakes. Military-grade bodywork. Rear seats. Rear compartment. The president and up to 4 passengers can sit inside with a glass partition. So they're saying only Trump can lower it. So apparently they're saying he lowered this and was sort of reaching through this in order to like take the wheel. So he lowers the limo compartment and he's reaching through. Okay. So through the front of the beast, I guess, is the story, right? And you can see, I mean, even just from looking at the graphic, it looks like there's a pretty massive partition there. Okay. So that's the allegation. Now, what we end up seeing is that it sounds like a lot of this is totally made up, right? Here we have this source coming over from Peter Alexander, and Peter Alexander says, a source close to the Secret Service tells me that both Bobby Engel, okay, the lead agent, and the presidential limousine, the SUV driver, are prepared to testify under oath that neither man was assaulted and that Mr. Trump never lunged for the steering wheel, right? So we have basically other witnesses. Now, this was a source that came out today at 3:24 p.m. But now people are going back and they're already looking through this. And you can see that Politico, for example, in other words, they've already interviewed these guys. They've already interviewed the Secret Service people, the lead of Trump's Secret Service team. And so here, for example, Politico wrote this article on 6/7/2022. They said here, January 6th committee interviews the head of Trump's Secret Service detail on the day of the Capitol attack, right? January 6th committee has interviewed the top Secret Service agent, according to 3 people familiar with the probe. Engel was the special agent in charge on January 6th. He was in charge of protecting the president from socks on to socks off the whole day. In that role, he was there backstage at the rally. He's got detailed insight. He's a secret spokesman agent person here. So they fully cooperated with the entire panel. They feel uncomfortable about this, right? And so my point here, they've already gotten all this out. All of this, they've had conversations on all of this. And we don't have any evidence from them that it actually took place, right? In this entire article. Engel isn't the only Secret Service person who spoke with them. 2 people also spoke with them about the interview, interviewed multiple agents. But none of this data came out today. So why didn't Engel talk about this previously? Why was this not communicated until today? Very, very curious. Well, it might be because it's not true at all, right? And if you take a look, well, I saw a couple memes come out. People are having fun with this. Nobody believes her, right? Here's sort of a meme. President Trump ripped the steering wheel out, according to this meme. He proceeded to place it on his lap, and then what happened, says Liz Cheney. He said in a pirate voice, "It's driving me nuts." Nobody believes her. All this stuff was going around on Twitter. It's driving me nuts, right? And then the media was already, or the internet was already going wild. Here's actual footage of Donald Trump actually outside the White House. Look at him.
I'm crossing the gate.
There he is.
I think I'm seeing the presidential limo driving across the ground.
There he is. Donald Trump. Did you see him? Look at him right there. Hold on. Wait for it. There he is. That's him reaching around to seize control of the presidential limo. Let's watch that again. Here he is.
I'm crossing the gate. No. I think I'm seeing the presidential limo driving across the ground.
Yeah, so I guess that's what happened. Now, Okay, so look, there are other witnesses. Okay, we can ask the Secret Service driver, did that happen? And is anybody going to call him in there and ask him that question? Did you get assaulted by the president? It's ridiculous, right? The whole thing's ridiculous. Now, we'll have to wait and see on that. Okay, but I'm guessing that that didn't happen, as is everybody else. But as we continue on, what we can notice is that, this type of dishonesty, this type of out of context statements or outright lie, like I think that one's probably an outright lie. But look, you can't even say that she's lying, right? Because this is like the game of telephone. This is why we don't take this type of testimony, because it's like, Susie tells Sally, Sally tells Bobby, and Bobby tells Billy. And it just goes around. And by the time, it's like, something happened here when it starts off, but then by the end of it, it's like, yeah. And that's why, the airplane flew into the volcano. And you go, what? What did you say? It all is unreliable. It's not credible in any way, shape, or form. It's dishonest. And there's a pattern of this here. We've covered this at length here out of the Donald Trump speech. Okay. So remember that part of the conversation was that they wanted, they brought in Hutchinson to detail for us more about the days leading up to the event. So let's actually start there. Here's a Rudy Giuliani clip, and let's piece this one together here.
Ms. Hutchinson, do you remember Mr. Giuliani meeting with Mr. Meadows on January 2nd, 2021?
Okay.
I do. He met with Mr. Meadows in the evening of January 2nd, 2021.
January 2nd. Okay. So they're
And we
plotting.
understand that you walked Mr. Giuliani out of the White House that night, and he talked to you about January 6th. What do you remember him saying?
As Mr. Giuliani and I were walking to his vehicles that evening, he looked at me and said something to the effect of, Cass, are you excited for the 6th? It's going to be a great day.
Are you excited
I
for
remember,
Insurrection Day?
Him saying, Rudy, could you explain what's happening on the 6th? He had responded something to the effect of, we're going to the Capitol. It's going to be great.
We're getting that
The
podium.
president's going to be there. He's going to look powerful. He's going to be with the members. He's going to be with the senators. Talk to the chief about it. Talk to the chief about it. He knows about it.
Can you picture Rudy Giuliani saying all of those things to her?
And did you go back then up to the West Wing and tell Mr. Meadows about your conversation with Mr. Giuliani?
I did.
Why would you go up to your boss and tell him about that? Like, is that an unusual thing? Like, there's a rally. You work for Mark Meadows. What are you talking
After
about?
Mr. Giuliani had left the campus that evening, I went back up to our office and I found Mr. Meadows in his office on the couch. He was scrolling through his phone. I remember leaning against the doorway and saying, I had an interesting conversation with Rudy, Mark. Sounds like we're going to go to the Capitol. He didn't look up from his phone and said something to the effect of, there's a lot going on, Cass, but I don't know. Things might get real bad on January 6th.
Things might get real bad on January 6th. Get your MAGA overalls on, baby. We're going to take this country back. So just prepare yourself, young lady.
What was your reaction when he said to you things might get real bad?
In the days before January 2nd, I was apprehensive about the 6th. I had heard general plans for a rally. I had heard tentative movements to potentially go to the Capitol. But
Why were you nervous? She hasn't detailed why she... Okay.
when hearing Rudy's take on January 6th and then Mark's response, that evening was the first moment that I remember feeling scared.
Yeah, scared. I don't really know why. I mean, Rudy, from what she just testified, right? Rudy's like, we're going to the Capitol. We're going to have, look, you're allowed to protest at buildings. Like, there's nothing that she said there other than Mark saying, things might get bad. And, who knows what that was all about. But, what was she scared? Why was she going to bed that night, not, a little nervous?
And nervous for what could happen on January 6th.
Okay, so we get that one. Now, there's also this conversation about Pat Cippilone. Then we'll see. I mean, basically what they do is they take Donald Trump just entirely out of context, and they're selectively editing material. Now, if you gave me all of the material and all of the money and all of the resources and all of the witnesses and all of the subpoena power and an endless staff and all of the media sycophants blowing their wind out my sails, Okay, I could take this same evidence that we've presented and make Donald Trump look like an American hero, right? Make it this whole thing look like Nancy Pelosi did it and that AOC was back there colluding with the Russians while doing it, because that's what you can do when you have thousands of witnesses and tens of thousands of hours of deposition. You just take stuff out of context, you just copy and paste it, and you just throw it in a book report and do what they're doing here. I mean, okay, so here, let's go take a look at this Pat Cippilone argument. I think they're still talking about, now, this is another point, right? Here she is. They've already done a deposition with her. It sounds like multiple of them. So why was this such an emergency then? Why did they need to drop everything and bring her out here? Why? Because of public pressure about her testifying from anonymous sources that haven't been indicted or referred charges? What a joke. Okay, so here she is now, apparently on one of her other prior depots. Let's listen.
I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, Mark, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung. And Mark had responded something to the effect of, you heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong. To which Pat said something, this is effing crazy. We need to be doing something more. Briefly stepped into Mark's office. And when Mark had said something, said something to the effect of, he doesn't think they're doing anything wrong, knowing what I had heard briefly in the dining room, coupled with Pat discussing the hang Mike Pence chance in the lobby of our office, and then Mark's response, I understood there to be the rioters in the Capitol that were chanting for the vice president to be hung.
President Trump's view that the rioters were not doing anything wrong and that, quote, Mike deserved it, helps us to understand why the president did not ask the rioters to leave the Capitol for multiple hours.
So again, this is the stupid, I get so tired of this argument. Cheney does this all the time. Cheney is unhappy with how Donald Trump led America through this crisis. Okay, Liz Cheney would have done a better job, apparently, even though she's about to be thrown out on her butt out of Congress. But she said repeatedly, Donald Trump didn't immediately get up, take his shirt off, open up his Superman chest and say, leave the Capitol, rioters, or else. You know, like, what is he going to do about it? Now, she's saying that he should have done something differently. And this is a standard of care argument. She's saying that his presidential actions were at a subpar standard than what she thinks was appropriate. But that doesn't make it criminal. That doesn't make it insurrectionary. He could have sat on his big fat butt all day and done whatever he wanted to. And you might have said that's a rotten thing to do, okay? And maybe he shouldn't be president anymore. And maybe you vote him out at the ballot box, even though that was already done at that point. But you could disagree with him, right? And that's the remedy. It's a political remedy. We don't create a fake committee to go out and prosecute an entire political party. Politics, my friends, is a remedy to bad actors in politics. You don't vote them in ever again if you don't like them. You don't form fake committees and then go eviscerate your political opponents. That's not an American thing to do. I've said this many times. What's happening here out of this fake committee is way worse than anything that took place on January 6th. That was an interference with democracy for like 6 hours. This has been an interference with democracy for 18 months now. Let's go back to her.
In fact, he put this tweet out at 2:24 p.m. Ms. Hutchinson, do you recall seeing this tweet in which the president said the vice president did not have the courage to do what needed to be done?
I do.
And Ms. Hutchinson, what was your reaction when you saw this tweet?
As a staffer that worked to always represent the administration to the best of my ability and to showcase the good things that he had done for the country, I remember feeling frustrated, disappointed, and really, it felt personal. It was really sad.
She's really sad. Yeah.
As an American, I was disgusted. It was unpatriotic. It was un-American. We were watching the Capitol building get defaced over a lie. And it was something that was really hard in that moment to digest, knowing what I'd been hearing down the hall.
I'm pretty sure she's auditioning for MSNBC. So you get the point of this. Now, here's another kind of ridiculous statement before we do the Trump compare and contrast. This is where they're saying Donald Trump was, to summarize this argument. So, as I said, we've talked and watched many hours of footage here. Capitol footage. The Democrats have been playing it over and over and over again. The one thing we haven't seen, a part of this giant insurrection that was going to take over America, was the use of firearms. I mean, I think there was like a grand total of like 1 or 2 firearms that were collected. People were charged with crimes for those. But outside of that, where were the firearms? How are they going to take control of the Senate without any weaponry? How are they going to do it with flagpoles and a podium? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But apparently, that's because Donald Trump told them to take the magazines out or something like this. Now, let's listen to her.
When a president speaks, the Secret Service typically requires those attending to pass through metal detectors, known as magnetometers, or mags for short. The Select Committee has learned that people who willingly entered the enclosed area for President Trump's speech were screened so they could attend the rally at the Ellipse. They had weapons and other items that were confiscated. You told us, Ms. Hutchinson, about particular comments that you heard while you were in the tent area.
I was in the vicinity of a conversation.
So again, why are they playing videos of the woman who is sitting there in front of her? What? Like, this is insane. You would never do this in a real trial. And unless it was like on this. Okay, so like, here's an example. Okay, Kyle Rittenhouse, we covered that in depth. We watched that footage a million times. Why? Because it was a footage of the incident. This is another deposition. She's there in this scam trial hearing, whatever this is. Just ask her the questions. You don't have to play the videos.
Conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in.
So she's saying, I don't know if you can hear it. The audio is pretty bad. Apparently at this deposition, they forgot to bring a microphone, but she's saying that Donald Trump was encouraging the Secret Service, let my people in because they have no intent to harm me. So let them in. Take the magazines away. Don't give them the guns and just let them in.
Take the effing mags away.
Just to be clear, Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that the president wanted to take the mags away and said that the armed individuals were not there to hurt him?
That's a fair assessment.
The president apparently wanted all attendees inside the official rally space and repeatedly said, quote, "They're not here to hurt me." And just to be clear, so
again, she's sitting right there. Why don't they just ask her?
He was.
Yeah, are they concerned that she's not going to say the same thing? Interesting. On Rumble, somebody said maybe she's just doped up on something and they're a little concerned that she may veer off script.
Told again in that conversation, or was he told again in that conversation that people couldn't come through the mags because they had weapons?
Correct.
And that people, his response was to say they can march to the Capitol from the Ellipse.
Something to the effect of, take the effing mags away. They're not here to hurt me. Let them in. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol after the rally's over. They can march from the Ellipse. Take the effing mags away. Then they can march to the Capitol.
Then they can march to the Capitol. Take the effing mags away. Okay. So, right, a lot of this is really, really strange stuff. It's all hearsay. It's all out of court statements. It's even her own statements are from out of court statements, right? They're from depositions that are not subject to cross-examination here in this court, which is absolutely amazing. Okay, so those are the clips from her. Now, I wanted to play what was presented in court. So I want to show you just how dishonest they really are.
Let's reflect on.
Here is a clip of a question relating to Donald Trump's speech. And then we're going to actually play the full speech and show you what's going on.
That for a moment. President Trump was aware that a number of the individuals in the crowd had weapons and were wearing body armor. And here's what President Trump instructed the crowd to do.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
And the crowd, as we know, did proceed to the Capitol. It soon became...
Okay, and you saw that, right?
I know that everyone here will
Let's watch this.
soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard today.
Okay, now that's the second half. Now, so my point, so they didn't play that full clip, okay? The right side broadcasting network clip was thrown in there at the end. Here's what ultimately happens. Okay, so this is the full video. It's about 2 minutes.
Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you.
Okay, so this is
We're
the
gonna
full
walk
video.
down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
And then they cut it basically right there, and he goes on. And he says, we need strong
Today
stuff.
we will, to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will take back our country with weakness.
It's like 10 seconds later. So they clip the whole thing out. So in other words, they're just liars, okay? They just clip out what they want. And you can do this with any politician anywhere in America. We have done this many, many times, and it's not even a complicated thing to do. But many people are just eating it up out there. So you can see, I mean, that's essentially the hearing. There's not much more to it. We do have Donald Trump responding, so we'll hit those responses. And then we'll get to your super chats and your comments over from our supporters at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. But after this big dumb charade today, Donald Trump was over on True Social, and here's what he said. He said, I hardly know who this person, Cassidy Hutchinson, is, other than I heard very negative things about her, a total phony and a leaker. And when she requested to go with certain others of the team to Florida after my having secured a full term in office, I personally turned her request down. Why did she want to go with us if she felt we were so terrible? I understand that she was very upset and angry that I didn't want her to go or be a member of the team. She is bad news, though, is what he said. He also posted something else there, and he said, never complained about the crowd. It was massive. I didn't want or request that we make room for people with guns to watch my speech. Who would ever want that? Not me. Besides, there were no guns found or brought into the Capitol building, so where were all of these guns? But sadly, a gun was used on Ashley Babbitt with no price to pay against the person who used it. That's from Donald Trump. And he's got a couple of good points there. Where were all the guns if there was so much guns and violence? Where were all those magazines? What were the Secret Service doing with all those magazines? How did Donald Trump reach his arm up through the wheel, through the separation of the beast, and actually almost cause an absolute catastrophe there with the White House driver? I mean, here it is.
I'm crossing the gate. No.
I can't believe it. I can't believe how they were able to get that footage in front of an official congressional hearing. But okay, my friends, so that is it. Now, I want to hear from you, everybody who is out there, who is generously supporting the show with your super chats and your comments and your loving support. We got over here on Locals. Let's start down here at the bottom today. And I'm scrolling back down here. Yes. Okay. So C Rose is here. Now, C Rose actually said this, says, Rob, I just want to let you know the Locals walking in Arizona videos. So I do these morning videos for members, are absolutely phenomenal in my very humble opinion. Well, thank you, C Rose. He says, does Arizona actually look like that? Looks like you're walking around a movie set. Yeah. And so Karaoke Princess likes them too. Well, cool. I'm glad you like those. So I live in a very beautiful part of Arizona. I'm very, very fortunate. I live in a historic district in downtown Phoenix. Most of Arizona doesn't quite look as beautiful as this, in my humble opinion, but we do have a very beautiful state. I mean, there's no doubt about it. People think it's just like a flat gray desert, and there are areas where it is that, but you know, we get palm trees and cacti, and it's a pretty beautiful state, especially if we get some water and the summers can really green up a little bit. But I live downtown where there's a lot of palm trees and a lot of greenery. beautiful old buildings, and I absolutely love it. So I'm glad that you're enjoying those videos, because I'm having fun making them and getting some fresh air hanging out with you guys. All right, TOS Forever is here. Says, good evening, everybody, watchers, community, and others. Says, what an insane linkage. He says, this is a hoot. Kenny B is here. He says, the president sits in the back of the presidential limousine. How in the world could he possibly reach through the cabin separator for the steering wheel? Well, he is Donald Trump. He might be Batman. Nobody knows. We had another one come in from Thunder 7. Thunder 7 says, they brought this surprise witness in the same day that they handed down the Maxwell sentence. Think they're trying to deflect and distract a little bit? Could be. That's from Thunder 7. And Jeff Rook says, in today's segment on news no one gives a blank about, the J6 committee came out with an unplanned hearing that nobody cares about. Jeff Rook also says, consider this an advertising possibility if I haven't noticed if it already exists. When is the merch shop coming? And when will a chartreuse polo be available? Oh, I can't do the merch thing. I can't. I'm not that creative. You know, other people are way more creative on that. I can't come up with anything clever. Kenny 1B says here that says that I'm traveling to Scottsdale for the long holiday. Would love to stop by the office to say hi. Well, Kenny, shoot me an email. I'll let you know if I'm going to be by the office. Okay, so I'll let me know. I have a tendency to keep my schedule very unplanned. And so shoot me an email. You know the email, robert@rrlawaz.com, and I'll let you know if I'll be there when you are. Vientikis is also here. He says, everyone knows Trump's hands are too small to grab that steering wheel, so she's obviously lying. Jeff Rook says, do you ever feel like you're trying to cover episodes of SNL as if they're reality? No offense to you, but I feel like I'm listening to a psychologist try to seriously explain relationship dynamics of Days of Our Lives. Days of Our Lives is like a soap opera, right? Which is like a total joke. I mean, you know, no offense to anybody who watches that. Is that still around? My gosh, I used to volunteer at this place when I was in high school. When I was at a high school, I went to an all boys high school, and they made us do a lot of community service my junior year of high school. And I had to go and just like sit well, most of the work was extremely rewarding, but when I had a break, I had to go sit in this room, and the only thing on in that room was I think Days of Our Lives. It was like a soap opera of some sort. And it was like so painful. We didn't have iPhones and stuff back then. You know, man, I had like a Nokia phone with Snake on it, you know? So anyways, hilarious that it's like somebody trying to explain those soap operas, like a clinical psychiatrist really trying hard to make sense of all of it. And it's really impossible to do because it's so crazy. He says, I'll keep tuning in. I mean, please keep covering it, but good Lord, I'm upset that people who control our government are such clowns. If you're going to be an idiot, at least make it fun to watch, you self-righteous, self-aggrandizing idiots. And that's from Jeff Rook. They are doing themselves a disservice on this whole thing, right? Because let's carry on. Let's go on to the next comment here. I lost my train of thought on that. Thunder 7 says, there are no coincidences. Michael Stanger. Oh, we talked about Michael Stanger. Michael Stanger was down here yesterday in, I forget where we covered him, but yeah, he died yesterday, unfortunately. And it was also very convenient. And of course, as I think somebody else had a comment, you know, that all of this stuff was sort of stacking on top of one another. It is very interesting that Stanger dies right in the middle or right before the hearing took place. I forgot to cover Stanger a little bit more in depth. And I'll have to figure out when to include that, I suppose. Peely Wally says, hey, Rob, it's been a while. It has been a while, Peely Wally. I hope you're keeping well. You too. He says, what I must say is this charade of nonsense around January 6th is just harming Americans and their world standing and their respect. I don't know anyone here in Scotland that thinks that what's going on is anything but a political attack on Trump, who is a political fall guy, and it's disgraceful. It doesn't take Epstein to notice that corruption runs deep within Congress and the Senate. When you have people like Nancy Pelosi near the top of the government, then it's no surprise. There you have it from Peely Wally. Yeah, so it is everywhere. It's throughout our government through and through. And I don't think it's even, you know, they're not even hiding it anymore. So that is from Peely Wally. Over on YouTube, I saw a couple come in earlier. First of all, big shout outs to Bev and to Jonathan. So Bev C is here and Jonathan M became members on our locals community, which is super exciting because we have a very special member mastermind coming up on this Thursday, June 30th, 12:30 p.m. If you're a member either on Locals here at watchingthewatchers.locals.com or over on YouTube at wherever you're watching this on YouTube, right next to that subscribe button is the join button. Then we have a member mastermind coming up, and it's going to be a lot of fun. If you haven't read yet, chapter 10 of Think and Grow Rich, the audiobook is available on YouTube, and it's an outstanding audiobook. I'd listen to chapter 10. We're going to read through a little bit of that as a jumping off point, but we're going to have that mastermind. And so super excited for our new members, Bev and Jonathan, to come out and hang out with us. We also have Mark Pate is here. He says, I saw this part about the beast and you are kidding me. Now the president is a backseat driver. LOL, it's true. Yeah, Donald Trump is like, we're getting that second term, whether you like it or not. And it really is turning into sort of an HBO series, isn't it? It's getting more exciting. I mean, at least it's getting more exciting. Donald Trump seizing control of the presidential beast. I mean, it's more exciting than that judge who couldn't articulate a sentence. AD is here. Says the vice president has a big something. Is that what they mean? He says the vice president has a big you-know-what. Is that what they mean but about hung? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because they're saying, you know, hang Mike Pence or Mike Pence should be hung. So he's saying, is he well endowed? I don't know. I don't really know much about it. It's a good question. Somebody will have to ask Mike Pence. He is a very loyal man. His wife does love him a lot. Maybe he is. Curtis Bartle became a member. Shout out to Curtis Bartle. Geomancy Game says, hey, boss, sent you an email. Be on the lookout. All right, Geo, I'll take a look at that this afternoon. Thank you, my friend, Geo. Hope you're doing well, Geo. Geomancy is on YouTube. You want to go subscribe over there and take a look at some video game content. That's what he does. K Bean is here. Ghislaine got 20 years for trafficking children to nobody. Isn't that nice? Yeah. So Epstein's dead. Ghislaine Maxwell's going to prison for 20 years. And every single other person who rode on that airplane sounds like they're just going to get away scot-free. Now, to be honest, apparently there's some sort of, another indictment that is being investigated right now from the DOJ. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, but yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a scam, isn't it? Ghislaine's going to serve her time and it's probably going to be the end of it. All we're going to hear. So what a joke. All right. That was from K Bean. Thank you, K Bean. And thanks for modding up the place. Da Freak is here. He says, Rob, can you help me with an elder exploitation problem in Phoenix? Well, it depends. If you're being charged criminally for something like that, then the answer, of course, is yes. If you have somebody who is being exploited, that's going to be a problem for the police or for the Attorney General's office. If you're looking for a lawyer to help you deal with like assets and estates and things like that, then you're going to need a trust and estate lawyer to sort of step in and rectify those things. If you need help with any of those things, I can point you in the right direction if I can. But of course, send me an email, robert@rrlawaz.com. And even if I can't help you, if our firm can't help you, then we'll refer you to somebody who can. And I know a lot of people in those areas. Ricky L. Hendrick says, are we sure that she wasn't thinking of the beast going around Daytona Speedway? It's a good question. I don't really know what they're thinking. You know, if it's not on the teleprompter, I'm not sure they're thinking all that much, to be frank with you, Ricky. But I do appreciate the super chat and the comment. Let's see. I'm going to do a quick refresh on locals, and then we are going to wrap it up for the day. Ed is here. No, here's Jeremy. No, here. We got a couple more. Now, Heather, 3 Girlies is in the house. Shout out to 3 Girlies, Heather, and the 2 other girlies. And it's important, Heather, I forgot you posted a very good question about the J6ers in our morning walk comment thread. And I intended to pull that up here today, but I forgot to do that. So I apologize for that. But she said, how in the world are we supposed to have any confidence in what she is saying when she goes, he said something to the effect of, right? It's nonsense. It's all summary. I don't want to know what the effect of what they said was. I want direct quotes of what was said. Never mind that this is hearsay. She literally has no concrete statements in the whole testimony. It's always in the said the effect of. I didn't even notice that, Heather, but you're right. It's all just, it's It's just one person shooting from the hip. It's not credible. It's not legitimate. It would be thrown out in any other court. Are there really no remedies for a person to be so grossly defamed publicly? There is clear malice. No, I mean, I don't think so. I think Donald Trump, if he brought a lawsuit on this, they'd say, no, I mean, they're making their case. It's a legitimate government body. So there's nothing he can do about it as far as I can tell. Now, the remedy, of course, is at the ballot box. It's by people voting. And if they want change on this, they'll vote accordingly. And if they want Donald Trump back in charge, they'll vote him back in charge. And then there will be some serious consequences. Ed J says everyone should join Robert's Locals. Love the morning walks, though with time difference, it's nearing afternoon in Florida. You had interesting thoughts about the truck tragedy. Seems you think this could happen anytime. About the truck I think you're talking about the 50 migrants who died in the overheated semi truck. Yeah, I mean, it does happen all the time. It happens regularly. Now, it's not often, 50 people in a truck, but certainly, I mean, there are stories all the time. 3 people, overheating, dying in a truck, in a trunk of a car somewhere, right? People drop dead crossing the border all summer long and all winter long. They get taken advantage of. They get raped. People drop kids off in bushes and stuff like this. It's a humanitarian crisis. And I've lived in Arizona my whole life. It's been a problem my whole life. So yeah, this morning I was talking about it. It really makes me sick. It makes me sick to my stomach to think about 50, like you see that in movies, right? Like 50 people just baking away in a container somewhere. It's horrific. And this administration is enabling it, right? They have not done anything to disincentivize that from happening. I think they should, the dead body should lay at their feet, but they're not going to. They're not doing anything about it. And it's a real shame. 3 Girlies says the youngest girlie wanted me to say hi so she could get a shout out. Shout out big time to the youngest of the girlies. Youngest girlie, thank you for being here. Shout out to you. Shout out to the middle girlie and shout out to mom girlie. 3 Girlies. I love it when you're here. Hopefully you're all having an amazing Tuesday. I was going to say Saturday. It's not Saturday yet. I was getting ahead of myself. We're not there yet, youngest girlie. A few more days and then we'll be at Saturday soon enough. Thunder 7 says, Rob, I don't know how you feel about Carrie Lake, but she's kicking up a storm in AZ. Wow. She's the new face of the GOP. Thunder 7 is onto something here. I did watch the full interview. And I can't play it here because Carrie Lake, would get me banned from YouTube. But she, oh my gosh, her and Brett Baer, they went at it. And Brett Baer sort of brought up the drag queen story, and she freaking was throwing elbows like harder than Nancy Pelosi was at Brett Baer on Fox News. I mean, it was pretty something. And I don't, I was surprised. I was actually surprised by her. I was like, wow, that woman is really, really anchoring her position in on this. And I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's well worth having that debate. I'm glad she is doing that. So very, very, very cool. We had another one from 503 says, I'm curious how Republicans are going to respond to political arrests and investigations once they win it all back. If they don't, people will really lose faith in the Republican Party. Yeah, I think it's more than that, 503. The reason I think the Republicans maybe will do something is because now this is an existential threat. We're sort of at the end of the line here. And if the Republicans don't start playing ball, if they don't start using the same tactics that the Democrats are using, they're going to lose. I mean, they're on the verge of losing right now. I mean, they're under a subpoena. They're under the thumb of a fake January 6th select committee that is, in my opinion, operating extra legally outside of the bounds of the lawful mechanisms of power in this country. And so if they don't harden up and respond in kind, they're going to get steamrolled. I mean, they're getting steamrolled right now. I mean, honestly, if you take a look at it, right, where are the Republicans? What are they doing? This is like a bloodletting. They're just allowing the Democrats to go after every single Republican because they want Trump and all of his supporters eviscerated. And we'll see if it works. Now, the downside for the Democrats is that it might awaken a beast, and people might start saying enough of this, and they might, decide to send Trump back there in droves. We will have to see. But that, my friends, is it for us for the show. I want to thank those of you who are members and who supported the show with your super chats. That's how we stay going here, and I appreciate it. Whether you sign up at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, signing up on YouTube, or if you are supporting our law firm by sending good people charged with crimes over so that we can just have the opportunity to help. If we can give them a book of mine, if we can send them on their way, connect them with another lawyer. We're happy to do that. But the real goal is to help them, if they're charged with a crime, find safety, clarity, and hope so that they can move on beyond this criminal charge and find that peace in their lives. We offer free case evaluations at 480-729-6280. We do have our member mastermind coming up this Thursday for members of our communities. 12:30 p.m. It's going to be an unlisted private live stream. And so be on the lookout for that. Shout out to the mods in the house, to Vientikis, K-Bean, Zulu, Just Cause, and Geomancy was here as well. And then, of course, big shout outs to our Spotlight supporters. Spotlight supporters are those who just support the show with a little bit extra. And I'm very grateful for them. And so I want to make sure that we share a little bit of valuable real estate on our screen with them here at the close of every show. And so if you want to support the show at the Spotlight supporter member level on YouTube or an equivalent member level on Locals, let me know, and you too can have some screen real estate just like this. Q Simple. John is in the house, and so go check out qsimple.com to learn more about John. Chris Romero is here, Spotlight supporter. David B3, and of course, Dr. EMB in the house, all supporting the show with a little bit extra. And of course, I very much appreciate that. And that, my friends, is it for us for the day. I want to thank you for being a part of the show. We will be back here to do it all again tomorrow. I do have a Ghislaine Maxwell video that should be coming out a little bit later tonight. And so come on back to check that out. I got to edit it a little bit and then I'll upload that and get that posted. But thanks for being here, my friends. We're going to be back here tomorrow. I hope to see you there. Have a great night, my friends. Bye-bye. And here it is for Vientikis, the lens cap. Bye-bye, everybody.